It was the silence that woke him. Not the alarm, not the neighbor's old Chevy coughing to life at dawn, not even the clatter of his dog's paws across the kitchen tile. Just silence. Daniel Whitaker lay in bed in his two-story home on the outskirts of Raleigh, North Carolina, listening to the kind of hush that felt unnatural in a house where his wife usually filled the morning with soft humming, with the smell of fresh coffee and buttered toast. This morning there was nothing. He called out, his voice low, careful not to sound like he was worried, though he was. No answer. The clock read 6:13 a.m. She should have been up by now. Emily was always up before him, showered, dressed, phone buzzing with messages from her students at the community college where she taught English comp. She was a creature of routine. Predictable. And yet. Daniel sat up, rubbed his face, then swung his feet onto the floor. His knees popped, an unwelcome reminder that 37 wasn't as young as it sounded. He padded down the hall and paused outside the bathroom. The light was off. Empty. By the time he reached the kitchen, he found her, sitting at the table, coffee mug untouched, her phone screen glowing in her hands. She didn't notice him until he cleared his throat. "You okay?" he asked. Emily startled, shoving the phone face down as though it had burned her fingers. She smiled too quickly. "Yeah. Just checking something for class." Daniel nodded, though something in his gut clenched. He knew her smiles. This one was wrong, tight, practiced, not reaching her eyes. The Whitakers had lived in Raleigh for 8 years, in a neighborhood of young families and retirees, streets lined with maples that exploded red and gold every October. Their lives were ordinary by all accounts. Daniel worked for a mid-sized construction company, managing projects across the city. New office buildings downtown, suburban homes in Cary, a strip mall outside Durham. He liked the tangible proof of his labor, steel rising, concrete poured, the clean lines of a finished roof. Emily had been teaching since grad school, loved literature with a quiet passion. She read late into the night, her lamp casting a warm glow while Daniel fell asleep beside her. They were, in theory, a steady couple. Mortgage paid on time, dinners together most nights, the occasional movie date at North Hills. But lately, Emily had grown distant. She lingered in the bathroom after showers, phone in hand. She came home later from campus, offering vague explanations about grading or department meetings. Daniel noticed everything. He just didn't know what it meant. The first Real crack appeared 2 weeks later. They were at a Saturday cookout with neighbors, the kind of suburban ritual Daniel usually enjoyed. Burgers on the grill, kids running through sprinklers, someone's Bluetooth speaker playing country music a little too loud. Emily slipped away to the side yard to take a call. When she came back, her face was flushed, and she told him it was her sister. But Emily's sister lived in Colorado, and she almost never called. That night, Daniel checked their phone bill. The number she'd dialed and texted repeatedly wasn't her sister's. It was a local Raleigh number he didn't recognize. He didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he started watching. It was in the little things. Emily began wearing perfume on nights she claimed she had late grading sessions. She shaved her legs more often, changed outfits twice before leaving. She guarded her phone like it was a fragile glass heirloom, never letting it out of sight. Daniel told himself he might be imagining it. Maybe she was just restless, maybe mid-30s brought with it a need for change. People drifted. But then he remembered her smile that morning at the table, too quick, too false. One evening, while she was in the shower, he picked up her phone. Locked. She'd never used a passcode before. That small act, putting a password on something that had once been shared freely, told him everything he needed to know. Raleigh was full of quiet corners, places where people disappeared for an hour unnoticed. Hotels off Capitol Boulevard. Bars where no one knew your name. Parking lots shadowed by tall pines. Daniel began to imagine her in those places. Not with a stranger exactly, no, he sensed it was someone she knew. Someone who made her laugh the way she used to laugh with him. The thought ate at him during long days on construction sites. He found himself staring at steel beams, his clipboard heavy in his hand, hearing only the echo of his own suspicion. Finally, one Thursday afternoon, he followed her. Emily told him she had a late meeting with colleagues. Instead, Daniel watched her drive downtown and park behind a cafe on Glenwood Avenue. He stayed back, heart pounding, his old Ford idling at the curb. She didn't go inside. She waited, checking her phone, until a man appeared, tall, dark-haired, carrying a leather satchel. He leaned in close when he greeted her. Too close. Daniel gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. He watched them walk side by side into the cafe, her hand brushing his arm. There it was. Proof. Not in words, but in the language of bodies. Intimacy where it didn't belong. For days afterward, Daniel moved through life like a ghost. He kissed her cheek mechanically, made small talk about weather and errands, all while replaying that moment outside the cafe. He learned the man's name, Brian Halloway, another instructor at her college. Divorced, mid-40s, lived in a townhouse near Lake Johnson. Daniel found this out with the efficiency of someone who built structures for a living, systematic, precise, methodical. He imagined confronting her outright. Or punching Brian in the face. Or packing a bag and leaving without a word. But rage had a way of cooling into something sharper, more deliberate. Instead, Daniel waited. It was a Sunday night when it finally broke. Rain hammered the roof, and the air smelled of wet asphalt. Emily sat curled on the couch, scrolling her phone, when Daniel walked in holding a printed copy of their phone records. "We're going to talk," he said. She froze. "About what?" "About this number you've been calling every day for the past 3 months." He tossed the paper onto the coffee table. Her eyes flicked down, then back up, wide with guilt. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "Daniel. Don't lie to me." His voice cracked. And she didn't. She broke instead, tears spilling, hands trembling, words tumbling out in broken fragments about feeling unseen, about wanting more, about how it just happened. Daniel listened, stone-faced, as though he were a contractor reviewing blueprints for a house already condemned. Betrayal left him hollow, but in that emptiness grew something fierce. Revenge wasn't about fists or shouting. It was about reclaiming control. Within a week, Daniel had contacted a lawyer. North Carolina was one of the few states where alienation of affection laws still allowed a spouse to sue the other partner's lover. If Emily wanted Brian, she could have him, but not without cost. He filed for divorce, citing infidelity. He filed suit against Brian, too, ensuring his name would be dragged through court, his reputation at the college stained. When Emily realized what he had done, she begged him to reconsider. But Daniel only looked at her with the calm of a man who had already lost everything and found a strange clarity in the rubble. The last time he saw her was outside the courthouse, the Raleigh skyline rising pale against a spring morning. She stood with Brian, her hand tucked into his, her face both defiant and afraid. Daniel walked past them without slowing, the thick envelope of finalized papers in his hand. In his chest there was no triumph, no joy. Just a hard-earned truth: sometimes the people you build your life with will tear it down, brick by brick, while smiling at you across the dinner table. But in the wreckage, you learn what you're made of. And Daniel Whitaker, once a husband, now something else entirely, kept walking, leaving behind the ruins beneath the quiet streets of Raleigh.